Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Welcome to the August 17th, 2020 Frankfort Village Board meeting. We call this meeting to order and we ask our clerk, Brian Feary, to take the roll, please. Here.
Trustee Borelli. Here. Trustee Clavio. Here. Trustee Farina. Here. Trustee Ogle. Here. Trustee Petro. Here. Trustee Severia. Here. Clerk is here. Attorney Mahoney. Attorney Hannah Lamar. Chief Barica. Village Administrator Pisha. Assistant Administrator Jeff Cook. Present.
Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda is what we call the unanimous consent agenda. All items on the unanimous consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be voted on after a single motion. If one of the trustees wants to discuss one of those items in more detail, we will remove it from the consent agenda. So I first ask, do any trustees want to remove any items from the consent agenda?
The first is end-of-year transfers. The second is accessory structure area variance.
And which other one, Margaret?
C1 and F2.
C1 and F2. Oh, I just didn't get all the way down there. Good. We'll take those off the consent agenda then. Anything else? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Trustee Ogle and a second by Trustee Petro. And we do want the audience here in our boardroom and the audience at home on the internet and the TV to know something about the items that we're passing on our consent agenda, so we'll go over each one of them briefly. The first one is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on August 3rd. The second one is the approval of the bills. And we'll go to Trustee Severia, the chairperson of our Finance Committee, for a report on those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bills are pretty routine tonight. General Corporate Fund was $382,549.80. Motor Fuel Tax Fund was $15,268.16. Capital Development Fund, $88,195.95. We had Sewer and Water operating maintenance for $150,501.13. Also extension fund for sewer and water of $3,587.18. And finally, we had $440,688.59 to Joseph Henderson and Son for the North and West Water Treatment Plant abandonment. So the total for tonight was $1,080,790.81. And those are the bills tonight.
Thank you, Gene. Then we have several items from our Land Use and Policy Committee, and we'll go to its chair, Trustee Ogle, for a report on those.
Thank you, Mayor Holland. The first item on here, there's a total of 3, and the first 2 are Village Code Ordinance Amendments. At the August 12, 2012 meeting of the Land Use and Policy Committee, they considered an amendment to the Municipal Traffic Code. The amendment was signed liability to the registered owner of a vehicle for any parking regulation violation. Currently, the Village Code nor the Illinois Vehicle Code provides for liability when the driver of the vehicle is not identified. So I motion that we'll accept the recommendation of the Land Use and Policy Committee, waive the first and second readings, and pass an ordinance amending the Village of Frankfort Code of Ordinances, Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 72, Parking Regulations, creating Section 72.11, Parking Violations Enforcement, Prima Facie Responsibility Designated. The second item on here is also an ordinance amendment for smoking in public places. And the committee considered a request from the police department to better define smoking in section 138.01 of the municipal code. The revised definition of smoking would assist law enforcement in situations where a person is using an alternative smoking device in an area that already prohibits smoking. And the motion is to accept the recommendation of the Land Use and Policy Committee, waive the first and second readings, and pass an ordinance amending the Village of Frankfort Code of Ordinances, Title 8, General Offenses, Chapter 138, Smoking in Public Places, Section 138.01, to provide a revised definition of smoking. The last item on here is a resolution for a social media policy, which has been discussed for a very long time. There's a lot of layers and First Amendment issues and a lot of things that we can bump up against. And the first step for us is to create a policy before we go forward on this. And the Land Use and Policy Committee discussed a social media policy for the Village of Frankfort. The Village of Frankfort desires to enhance communication with the public through social media, and this policy sets guidelines for the appropriate establishment and use of the official social media accounts of the Village of Frankfort Municipal Corporation. So the motion is to accept the recommendation of the Land Use and Policy Committee and adopt a resolution establishing a social media policy for the Village of Frankfort. That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. And we have 3 items from the Operations Committee, so we will go to its chair, Trustee Borelli, for a report on those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Operations Committee met last Wednesday. The first item is the lead service line replacement program, engineering services agreement extension. At that meeting, the Operations Committee considered an extension of the engineering services agreement between the Village of Frankfort and Robinson Engineering for the village's lead service line replacement program. The original scope and phasing of the project was determined by the IEPA with loan principal forgiveness terms of 50% on $1 million per year over a 2-year program. The IEPA has since released new loan agreement terms which would allow the village to pursue up to $4 million per year with 100% loan forgiveness for the lead service line replacements, which will enable the village to complete all of them in one single project. Robinson Engineering proposes $55,000 in additional fees for design engineering services and $150,000 of fees for construction engineering services for the increased project scope. It was the consensus of the committee to forward a recommendation to the village board to authorize the execution of a professional engineering services agreement extension with Robinson Engineering for the lead service line replacement program. So the motion before us tonight is to accept the recommendation of the village board and adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional engineering services agreement supplement with Robinson Engineering for the village's lead service line replacement program for a lump sum fee of $55,000 of additional fees for design engineering services and contingent upon the IEPA funding a lump sum fee of $150,000 for construction engineering services. The next item is the Prestwick Drive water main replacement project. At that same meeting, the Operations Committee reviewed 8 bids received for Prestwick Drive water main replacement project. Of the bids received, Austin Tyler was the lowest bidder in the amount of $882,292.13. The project includes replacement of the water main on Prestwick Drive from the intersection of Harlem to a point 200 feet west of the elevated water tower located at 600 Prestwick Drive. The engineering's opinion of probable construction costs for this project was $1,260,888.50 and is included in the FY 2021 budget. It was the consensus of the committee to forward a recommendation to the village board to accept the low bid and award the contract to Austin Tyler in the amount of $882,292.13. So the motion before us tonight is to accept the recommendation of the Operations Committee and adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with Austin Tyler Construction for the Prestwick Drive water main replacement project in an amount not to exceed $882,292.13. And that was substantially under budget, so we've asked staff to pursue additional projects to use up some of the additional funds that we had allocated towards water main replacement this year. A good news story. The last item on the agenda at the Operations Committee that we discussed, we reviewed a request from the Police Department to purchase 3 2021 Ford Utility Police Interceptor all-wheel drive hybrid vehicles. The vehicles would be purchased through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative under contract number 152 at a cost of $45,420 each. The replacement vehicles are included in the FY 2021 budget, and the cost includes the vehicle base price, options, equipment, and installation of emergency equipment. It was the consensus of the committee to forward a recommendation to the village board to authorize the purchase of 3 replacement vehicles from Curry Motors of Frankfort as presented. So the motion before us tonight is to accept the recommendation of the Operations Committee and adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with Curry Motors of Frankfort for the purchase of 3 2021 Ford Utility Police Interceptor all-wheel drive hybrid vehicles at a cost of $45,420.00 each, or a total cost of $136,260, which includes the vehicle base price, options, equipment, and installation of emergency equipment. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Adam. And that leaves us with one item from the Plan Commission, and we'll go to our liaison for the Plan Commission, Trustee Clavio, for a report on that item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you indicated, we've got 2 items, but one has been taken off to talk about later. But the one item left is Holly's Massage special use for 11 South White Street. Mr. Mayor, this is an interesting discussion because, as Trustee Ogle indicated earlier, that it's important to retain control of our businesses and what people do and don't do. Holly Arndt is the applicant. She actually came to town in 2018 with her business and was located at 21195 South LaGrange Road at that time as part of Tracy's Boutique, I'm going to say. And at that time, we granted her a special use for massage within that business. But in wanting to make sure we control and in the best interest of our citizens, if a person moves their business, even if they've been given a special use, they don't get to keep that special use. They have to reapply for that special use. So that's why Holly is here before us tonight and proposes the same special use permit, but at the location of 11 South White Street inside the trolley barn. To accommodate the proposed business of the new location, the applicant seeks the granting of a special use for a massage establishment. At the Plan Commission meeting last Thursday, August 13th, the Plan Commission did forward a unanimous 4-0 recommendation to the board tonight for the approval of the special use request. So before us, the motion is to accept the Plan Commission recommendation, waive the first and second readings, and pass an ordinance granting a special use permit for a massage establishment for Holly's Massage located at 11 South White Street in accordance with the reviewed plans and public testimony. That's it for now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, John. So those are all of the items on the consent agenda this evening. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to make any comments to the village board about any of these items? Hearing none, any questions or comments from the trustees? Jess?
I just wanted to acknowledge the staff's time and diligence in the social media policy. It has been an ongoing discussion for some time, and it's the first step. And certainly during this time where we've relied on technology to get out information and narrative, I'm just glad that we're moving in that direction, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then we'll go to our clerk, Brian Feary, for the vote.
Trustee Severia?
Yes.
Trustee Borelli?
Yes.
Trustee Clavio?
Yes.
Trustee Farina?
Yes.
Trustee Ogle?
Yes.
Trustee Petro?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And now to Trustee Severia, who is the chair of our Financial Affairs Committee, to talk about the end of the year transfers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fiscal year 2019-2020 end-of-year transfers are presented for the village board consideration. These transfers provide for allocation of excess operating revenues over operating expenditures to the capital accounts. The general fund, Fund 01, will transfer $5,844,268.56 to the Capital Development Fund, Fund 31. These transfers represent excess revenues over expenditures for fiscal year 2019-2020 and will be used for future capital expenditures, including the purchase of equipment, street resurfacing, and capital projects. The Utility Operating Fund, Fund 62, will transfer $6 million of excess revenues over expenditures to the Utility Capital Fund, Fund 68, for the future capital expenditures, including utility projects and IEPA loan repayments. The motion is to approve the 2019-2020 fiscal year and fiscal year-end Village of Frankfort inter-fund transfers presented and dated April 30th, 2020.
And I'll take that as a motion. Right, Gene?
That is a motion.
Good. And we have a second from Trustee Ogle. Now, any discussion?
Mayor Hall, I just have one comment and a question. First of all, it's great that we have excess funds, and I thank the staff and our colleagues for budgeting conservatively. That's terrific. I did have a question with the budget this year. We know we are in some hard economic times. We can have even some harder times coming in the winter, given the pandemic. Are there any advantages to not take money out of the operating funds right now and leave it there just in case there's some emergent issues that we need?
Well, that's a good point. It's not necessary. We can transfer funds. And we budgeted this year to have a $3 million surplus again next year that would go to our capital funds. It is necessary to have surpluses in our operating budget because that's the primary, or a primary funding source for the capital funds. And the capital funds do things that some accountants wouldn't consider capitalized. We do them every year, such as repaving roads is a huge part of our expense in the capital fund, $3 million this year. And without these funds coming in, it's an issue. But anyway, we budgeted to have another $3 million this year. We're certainly hoping that that would be adequate to cover problems from COVID-19. Do we know for sure? Of course not.
Mhm.
It's an unusual year.
It is.
Anything could happen, but technically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, we can transfer funds among, or we can transfer money among any of these funds except the MFT fund, the police pension fund. It's probably a legal question, but there are certain funds that are very restricted and you can't do anything with them, but that's for obvious reasons. We have no business spending the police pension fund on something else. That's for their pensions. And MFT funds are essentially your federal gas taxes coming back to the village, and they must be spent on road projects. But to move money from the operating budget, the general fund, over to the capital fund, I think it's just as easy to move it back. We just vote on it, right?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So we can fix it if we have to.
Well, and that's important, given the circumstances right now, just to
Yeah.
have that flexibility, do it in a legal manner as well, protect our current other funds that are important, like police pension and so forth.
Agreed.
So again, this is great. We have a surplus. This is something that we value and pride here, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Good point to bring up.
Thank you.
Anything else? Then we have a motion and a second. We'll go to our clerk, Brian Feary, for the vote.
Yes.
Trustee Severia. Yes. Trustee Borelli. Yes. Trustee Clavio. Yes. Trustee Farina.
Yes.
Trustee Ogle.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then we had another item from the Plan Commission, so we'll go back to our liaison with the Plan Commission, Trustee Clavio, for a report on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second issue is the Lockhart accessory structure area variance located at 22604 Blarney Road. Earlier this spring, the applicant, who is also the property owner, Mr. Cody Lockhart, constructed a 480 square foot concrete patio in their rear yard of the residence located at 22604 Blarney Road, which is in the Frankfort Meadows subdivision. The applicant now came back to the Plan Commission and proposes to install a basketball goal and utilize the patio as a sports court. They've requested the granting of an accessory structure area variance from 144 square feet to 480 square feet to accommodate the proposed conversion. The Frankfort Meadows Homeowners Association has reviewed and approved their proposed plans. Last Thursday, August 13th, at the public hearing before the Plan Commission forwarded a unanimous 4-0 recommendation to the Village Board to approve the variance request. So before us tonight, Mr. Mayor, is to accept the Plan Commission recommendation, waive the first and second readings, and pass an ordinance granting an accessory structure area variance from 144 square feet to 480 square feet to permit the construction of a basketball court in the rear yard of the property located at 22604 Blarney Road in accordance with the reviewed plans and public testimony, and conditioned upon no illumination of the court and installation of landscaping plantings in accordance with the provided plans.
We'll take that as a motion then. Is there a second? We have a second by trustee Borelli. Any discussion?
Just a few items. The first two are inquiries, and the third is just a comment on the motion. When I saw this on the Plan Commission's agenda last week, I did follow up with staff because I thought we had put a moratorium on requests for sports courts or pergolas. I did discuss this with staff, and there was a staff change within the last couple of years, and supposedly, that did not make it to the new staff person to research and bring it to committee for discussion. So I would like us to move forward with a discussion if 144 square feet is sufficient, because we've received a lot of these requests on the Plan Commission and the Village Board. In regards to pergolas, what we were finding is if you had a lot that was, say, it was like over a half acre, certainly 144 square feet was too small of a pergola for that size lot. So we were considering, do you need to adjust it based on a percentage of lot size or coverage? In regarding to sports courts, we had found, like, one gentleman wanted the United Center in the back of his house, which literally was a bit larger than his house lot. And then there was another one where it was, there were 5 different types of uses in the backyard, creating quite the environment for his neighbors. And we heard from neighbors on both of those issues. So as Frankfort, we consider ourselves the gem of the South Side because we do have ordinances in place to have beautiful landscape and a certain look and aesthetic, which helps with property values and our look and feel. So I'm afraid if we continue to move forward with these types of variances, that one day you can have that broken window effect in the backyard of a neighbor, or this one happens to be butting up against a field, but one day it could be butting up against Route 30 or Wolf Road, and again, broken window. Once you reach that point, it's hard to come back. So I'm hoping that we can reconsider that moratorium and discussing it at the committee level.
Interesting. So what you'd like is for us to not issue anymore until we discuss this, maybe a new law. But the new law would be more generous than our current law.
In some instances, maybe in a pergola with regards to lot size and coverage. But then perhaps we separate sports courts and that type of request. We may want to keep that at 144. I'm not sure. That's why I think we need to go back to the committee.
Right.
But something to give staff relief if we have like
Right.
a larger lot size. We may want to go higher for a pergola. In sports courts, maybe we don't want them. Or maybe we do, but just at 144 square feet. But again, to be discussed, because these requests keep coming up, and there could be more clarification.
They do come up from time to time, and I know the Plan Commission has been very concerned about it in the past. Probably while the two of you were on it.
I was a little surprised. We were at Trustee Borelli and I were at this meeting, and unfortunately we stepped out when this was discussed. But I was surprised to step back in and the fact that it passed, because in the past we've been dead set against sport courts. I don't know legally if we put an ordinance in saying that we don't want them. I mean, can we do that? Or I think right now we don't have anything.
I can assure you we can
Right,
pass
but-
ordinances that
But
aren't
right now we don't have
necessarily.
anything saying that they can't have
Correct.
sports courts.
Jess?
Just to add additional commentary, I'm very familiar with some of the things that they had asked for, and staff actually did prepare some ideas that were presented back to Plan Commission. I'm not sure if they were presented to the board at that point, but it was similar to what Trustee Farina is suggesting around more of like a sliding scale, or to look at materials, lighting, that it was something that is obviously much more than a concrete slab, and it has an impact that is greater to the neighbors and aesthetics, greater than a patio. And so like putting sports courts in the same category as the patio is probably not appropriate anymore, just based on how far they've come with the different colors and lighting and, you know, activities that can be done on them. And so they probably need some more details and more regulation than just a patio. And so I am too surprised that it was a unanimous vote. And I'm also concerned as to why the patio was poured. Like, do they have a variance for the original patio, just a concrete slab?
I don't think that there's an ordinance on patios. They can, we discussed this before, they can pour any size patio they want, but there is a limitation to the pergolas and the structures that they put on it.
And actually, Trustee Petro, I spoke with the chair of the Plan Commission, and she pointed that out too, and she thought that in the application process, there needs to be a question, what is the purpose for this patio, especially, this one was an island all the way in the back lot. Now, again, there's a farm field, but if that was an adjacent property, the adjacent property owners would get the impact of a 5-on-5 or 3-on-3 ball game. So I think that's a good point to bring up, and
Right.
something we have to look at.
I would
in
have
the-
to think they poured this
With
wanting
intent.
a sports court.
Right.
And, yeah.
It sounds to me like they had probably done some research that there wasn't sports courts moving forward, and so with intent to move past that a little bit, especially where it's placed in the yard, would be some good questions.
Right.
I know there has been discussion in the past on this issue, and it's not simple, of course, because a sport court over here isn't a problem, but over here it is. And they're both the same size, and the lots may be the same size. If you put it right next to my house, then maybe I'd say, well, I don't like it there. You should put it next to your house if you're putting in the sport court. But most people want to move it over next to the neighbor's house.
Exactly.
Of course, they don't want it next to their house, and you just go on and on with those kinds of issues, and sometimes it's nice to be able to review them. Now, that probably could happen. There probably could be a way to review every patio and sport court, but boy, we could spend a lot of time at that. So kind of an interesting issue, but it seems appropriate for it to go back to the Plan Commission and have them discuss it, for staff to look at it and make some proposals. But Adam, you had something.
Yeah, no, I would echo Trustee Petro, Trustee Severia, Trustee Farina. I mean, I thought we were, there was some progress made, and then I feel like it sort of lost momentum. And I think we all agreed back a couple years ago that this generic 144 square foot limitation was just way too subjective, and I think the plan commissioners and the board are looking for better guidance, and so hopefully we can do that. I will say, I was surprised that actually Gene and I arrived like 6:40 and it was already passed. We were shocked how quickly it happened. So, but I am looking through the notes, and I see that there's no lighting, so I want to, if we are going to pass this, I want to make sure that any lights go up, and I have a huge problem with that. Where there's screening that's required that they said they would put in. So in this particular case, if we're going to pass it, if I'm going to vote yes for it, I want to make sure that all these limitations are in place for this particular one. But then, going forward, I'd like to see us revisit that soon.
Well, and I don't see a hardship, so I would, on a variance, which is typically why you ask for a variance, so I would vote no.
Can I ask if it's
The only other thing I'll add is looking at this aerial. Right now, this subdivision is not well developed, so there's no neighbors.
Yep.
But I would guarantee if they had neighbors on the other side, that those neighbors would probably come and say they have an issue with that sports court.
Probably.
I thought the same thing, and that's probably why the Plan Commission didn't hear as much, because I think there's a lot of neighborhood where you do start to see the impact of a patio versus a sport court.
Right.
now, if this is already poured, is that right? Is this in place? So then if we
yes.
vote no, then we go and they rip it out?
Well, they can keep the patio. They just can't have a sports court on it.
Got it, okay.
So if they poured it for a sports court, it was at their risk.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
That said, they can't erect the basketball.
Right.
They can still use it in theory for a sports court. You can bounce a ball around back there. You just can't shoot at the rim because they have no permission to put the rim in.
Well, and that's why I think we go back to staff, we go back to Plan Commission, land use policy, and try to iron these issues out, so it's clearer for staff, for the plan commission and ourselves.
Yep.
I would echo trustee Borelli, the bigger problem here I see is that all these people are doing this stuff and then they come back and ask for permission later. We need to get in the habit of, if they put the application in, they've started it, rip it out and then apply. It's harsh, but I mean, that's the only way we're gonna regain control of this. And there's many that are doing that. I mean, it's ironic how when you go to a plan commission meeting, we all get the packets, but we go do the research first and you go, they've already got the concrete foundation in.
Yep.
Or, they've already got the driveway marked off here, and they don't even have the approval yet. So it seems to be, there's where our slippery slope is that our residents are basically starting, and then they're coming in saying, oh, it'll get passed.
Right.
It happens from time to time. I think often because the people didn't even realize.
There's that
Here,
too.
he feels he's out in the country somewhere, probably from the city. Who knows? Keith?
I would say I had very much the same feelings when I saw this. It was passed unanimously after the discussions we've had about different sports courts. I'd certainly put pergolas and any sort of gardening and those sorts of structures in a completely different category as far as I'm concerned. And I think we do need to discuss this and change this. And I was very concerned that it had passed through that process. I appreciate the no illumination and the landscape planting, but to trustee Zavaria made the point too that right now it's not a built-out neighborhood completely, and as it does become, I see this becomes a problem. And it says it was poured in the spring and constructed as a concrete patio, and now it's coming forward as a sports court. So trustee Clavio made a good point on that. I don't know about whether I'd make them rip it out at this point or do that, but yeah, I don't think I'm not gonna go yes on this one.
Just one point of clarification, because I brought this up too, so I just want to understand, Jeff, they can pour it, that they don't need a variance for over 144 feet for the patio? That's correct. Okay. So they wouldn't need to rip it out?
They could put
If
barbecue on it.
I think that if the intent was, we're gonna pour it and then we're gonna come back and be hopeful that we get this variance for a sport court, that would be
Right.
the applicant's choice and risk decision, right?
Very much so.
Okay.
That's the way I would see it. I think that's the legal answer. We allow people to pour concrete in their backyard, but not for a sport court.
Got it.
So, anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Good, well, this is interesting. I think we'll go to our clerk, Brian Fury, for the vote on this.
Okay. Trustee Borelli? No. Trustee Clavio?
I'm going with yes, but I need to explain my answer. It's very important that we embrace and support our plan commission. And if they feel that this is appropriate, whether our commentary tonight is right or wrong, I feel it's appropriate, so yes.
Trustee Farina?
No.
Trustee Ogle?
No.
Trustee Petro?
No.
Trustee Severia?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the mayor's report. First item on the mayor's report was the big storm this last week, and was it ever a storm? We're very sorry for our residents who had damage to their property, to their homes. There was some damage to people's homes and garages. I don't know about any cars. But anyway, there was some damage to property. I don't know of anyone who got hurt in the storm. I know of a number of people who got torn muscles and such trying to clean up after the storm. So we feel badly about those people. But our own staff, I think, did a remarkable job in the basic cleanup of the community. There were neighborhoods in our community where there were trees across the streets, and they got them cleared relatively rapidly. And by the end of the week, I think they had all public walkways and such thoroughly cleared. And I think they're just cleaning up now with what people keep bringing out from their backyards. So it's kind of a big event. And of course, we had people without electricity, which was pretty awful. And it was a majority of our residents who lost electricity in the beginning, but most of those got it back the next day. Other residents waited all the way to the end of the week. And boy, that's discouraging. And we had some businesses that were out too for a long time. And it's very hurtful to those people, and there are losses involved. So we certainly feel badly about it, but we do thank our staff for getting out there and working on that, and I think it's appropriate that we paid the overtime. We did get some help from Peatone. They sent a chipper crew up for a couple of days, and then I think Peatone Township also sent a chipper crew, so we thank both of them. Frankfort gets another financial reporting award. Well, ever since I moved here in 1989, we've received one of those every single year. I think unless you're trying to slicker the people or doing something you shouldn't be doing, I think you can get one of these. But good for us that we're not trying to do anything like that, and good for Jenny and her crew, or Mrs. Booth, our financial director, who make us able to get this kind of an award. And they do a fine job indeed. The country market continues as long as the executive order says that farmers markets are approved and an approved thing to do. We're going to continue the country market. We did discuss that last Wednesday, and it's going to go through October 25th unless the governor's orders change. Our next board meeting is after Labor Day. It won't be till September 7th or 8th, on Tuesday. And finally, another tough thing that people in Frankfort are up against is the situation at our schools. Apparently, the Illinois Department of Public Health came out with new rules for how schools are supposed to operate. These were published late in the summer, and there's been another scramble as to what to do at the schools. And it's certainly put hardship on all these children who attend the schools and who some were expecting to go back to school, and now it appears they're not going to go back to school. And it just means a big change. And of course, for the school administrators and all those teachers, this isn't easy at all. I think a lot of them are still wondering what's going to happen, and school opens next week. That's pretty tough to deal with, and it just is the way it is. I do know that I've heard from our state representatives and state senators that the governor is not discussing these issues with them. It's the governor and his staff who are making decisions about public health. And I certainly hope they're discussing it with people like the Illinois School Boards Associations and the other organizations that represent those special groups. But from the village's viewpoint, we certainly see it's a strain on all the people who have anything to do with the public schools. So that concludes the mayor's report, and we'll go to our police chief, John Barica, for the police department report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to remind people to make sure they're practicing situational and safety awareness. Oftentimes we find ourselves distracted with phones in our hands and not paying attention to what's going on around us, or leaving purses and shopping carts at stores, on the trail with your headphones on, not paying attention, or even, like I said, running into the store and leaving your car running. Those are opportunities that for criminals to act on, so try to make sure that you're practicing that safety ritual and not doing those things. And also, as you said last week, it was great seeing everybody come out and help neighbors with the cleanup after the storm. But we also ask that people help their neighbors even when there's no storm around for crime and safety. If you see something, say something, call the police at any time. We are out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Just call us when you see something, and we're happy to go check it out. And with that, of course, make sure that you lock your doors, take your keys and key fobs out of your cars, and put your garage doors down at night, and remember the 9 p.m. routine. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, John. And now for the village administrator's report, we go to our village administrator, or assistant village administrator, Jeff Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I just wanted to touch on the storm issue that you discussed and thank the board for all their support in providing us the equipment that we needed to be able to respond and manage an event at this scale. That was, very much appreciated by the guys. And again, thanks to Public Works and Utilities for all of their efforts out there. They've done a great job. And this event affected a lot of trees throughout the neighborhoods. And what we've added to our website is some appendices from our landscape ordinance. Those talk about the different types of trees that are recommended for either street trees, overstory trees, or some of the smaller understory trees that you may be interested in planting or replanting in light of this particular event. So those are linked to on our village website under Hot Topics, and you can get to those that way. I also have some good news to share with the board regarding St. Francis Road. Those are words that don't typically go together. The final surface looks to be completing. Right now, they've got the main part of the road completed, and it's on track to be completed by the end of August. One thing that you may notice is the crews may leave with a rough grade on the sides for a while. They can't put the black dirt and sod in because it's under IDOT spec, which doesn't allow that to happen until September. So it may look like the crew's just up and left and more of the same, delay and such, but that's actually because of the contract provisions that are in place. So don't be concerned. They will be coming back, and we'll get the landscaping cared for. Also, under the road resurfacing program, we've gotten through some of the first streets, Nebraska being one of them, in anticipation of the school year. And we've got another 8 to go, and those should be wrapping up within the next month or so. So pretty busy time out there on the public works sides of things. And lastly, I just wanted to say happy 5th birthday to my son, Graham. He's watching right now. Hi, Graham. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff. It certainly was good to see some asphalt going down on St. Francis. I went up there today, and very nice to see. So congratulations. It's only been a while. Let's see, we got to go to our attorney. We have Hannah Lamore with us this evening. Hannah, what's your report?
No report today, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And that brings us to the part of our meeting we call Other Business, and this evening we'll start with Trustee Borelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely want to send a thanks to the Public Works crew. Amazing job that they did, not only Public Works, but Utilities, Village of Peatone. I think Kevin Hack's dad was out there helping. It was great to see all the help that came from neighboring towns and our residents. I'll give you an example. We were actually coming from out of town when this happened, so we returned to Frankfort around 9 o'clock, and I drove down Locust in Oregon, and I saw a group of people outside my neighbor's house who lost 2 really large trees. All of the neighbors had came over with chainsaws, cut it all up. It was all piled up by the time we got over there at 9 o'clock, and that just it exemplifies Frankfort. It's why a lot of people live here. We have these great neighbors that take care of each other in times of crisis, and it was really fantastic to see. Going back to your point on the school, I mean, it is disappointing. It's really tough for the kids. This is why I've really tried to support having activities where it's allowed, where the state says it's healthy, such as the farmer's market. I know the Winter on the Green will be coming up. We'll be discussing that. But if it's allowed and it's healthy, I mean, I think this is where the village, the park district, the schools need to come and do what they can to promote that social activity, especially if all our kids are not going to be at school. We got to keep promoting social health where we can, where it makes sense, where it's safe. And so I hope we keep that in mind as we make decisions going forward. And then finally, just a happy birthday to Graham. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Adam. Trustee Ogle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure a lot of us are going to cover a lot of the same things here, and Adam just made a very good point about the storm. We were out of power for most of the week, and our business was completely out all the way through Friday, as a lot of other businesses were. And For some that had just opened and are trying to make hay while the sun's shining a little bit right now, this was very painful for them because they'll be going into slower times with it. The schools, certainly, I do agree with Adam. Your social well-being is very important. The longer this draws on, we're 5 months, heading towards 6 months into this, and isolation for a lot of people. If you're an introvert, you've been, preparing for this your whole life. It's not a big deal. For people who are extroverts, the day one, they're climbing the walls. So we do need that in any way that we can do it, where we can do it safely. It's very important that we keep those personal connections, people to people. And, as far as the school, everything is changing day to day. I'm sure we all know teachers are involved with that, or we have students and anybody in the process. We need to be able to cut them a little bit of slack at the same time. They're being thrown curveballs. The Illinois Department of Public Health just released things last week. There's things constantly changing, so I know it's difficult. Try to be patient and let's roll with the changes the best we can. With the storm, it looked like the pear trees took a major hit. So when, as Jeff mentioned, when you're planting or considering planting, maybe stay away from the pear trees. But some of them also, I think, were getting towards their end of their life cycle. They were planted 15 years ago, and some new neighborhoods came up. This was about the time for them to be stressed. With all the trees down and damage to roofs, there were a lot of contractors out. There were people on those little rolling things that are selling exterminating services. There are people on bicycles, a lot of people knocking on doors. And we've mentioned it before. If somebody comes to your door knocking on it, there are scammers all over the place and people that take advantage of it. They need to have a lanyard, something from the village. And don't accept the thing, oh yeah, it's in my truck, or oh yeah, my manager's got it, he'll be up here. But in the meantime, here's what we want to do, sell you. Got to watch out for, in the process of watching out for ourselves and our neighbors, make sure we don't let these people take advantage of the situation while we're here. John, what should they call the 911 number or the non-emergency?
They can call the non-emergency, unless they have something going on, but yes, they should have a solicitor's permit with them. Anybody that's out there, they all need to have one individually on them. If they don't have one, then call the police department and we'll come check it out.
Yep, and we've seen them and we've called on them before too, so. And the last thing, Graham, we want to wish you a happy 5th birthday. That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Trustee Farina.
Thank you, Mayor Holland. I echo what trustees Borelli and Ogle said about our public works, utilities, departments, our staff. I know police were also out there working for the storm, so thank you. I also want to acknowledge that the Kids Work Children's Museum will have their annual fundraiser August 28th. It is a derby night from 7 to 11. You can go there personally. It's at CD&Me, or you can go virtually. Tickets are on sale at the Kids Work Museum website. They're $50 a piece, or if you can just donate, that would be great. It is the only kids museum in Will County. It's exclusive here in Frankfort. It's served as a wonderful resource for our community and even outside communities that come to our downtown area. They have been closed due to COVID, so we're hopeful that we can keep it alive and going because it is a nice key item. And even to Trustee Borelli and Ogle's point about socialization, children need that in their development, and that's an opportunity and resource for that for parents and children. So check that out. And then we have a retirement in the police department, Beverly Glass. I just want to thank her for her time and commitment to the village of Frankfort, and I wish her all the best of luck and wishes in her retirement, and enjoy her time. And then finally, happy birthday, Graham. That's it.
Thank you, Margaret, and Trustee Severia.
Happy birthday, Graham. I too wanted to mention the storm. Right after it hit, I went out and kind of drove around the town. Immediately, staff was out there cleaning up. We had several power lines down. Police were out there. They had them marked off. One thing I want to mention about that, I had a friend that lives out of town, and they had a line down. And his neighbor, he said his neighbor checked it with the meter. The lines that are above ground are not 120 volts. Thankfully, it was dead, because otherwise he would be dead right now. So if you guys see a line down, leave it alone. call the police department. It's not safe to get near them, right? That's all I wanted to say. And welcome home to my son, Gino, who's been in the Yukon for 6 months. So that's all I had.
And Gene, tell the people how you're qualified on high voltage electricity.
Well, I was a lineman for 6 years in the Air Force. So I worked high voltage, worked everything live, both here in the States and in Germany.
So you learned there somewhere to stay away from the live wire.
It's unless you know what you're doing, stay away. Yeah.
Thank you, Gene. Trustee Petro.
This is great. I love it. All the storm tips, and I've had to Google, am I saying it right? Derecho? With every new storm, I get to use new terms, right? As far as what we're calling these winds. I'm going to lead with a Mr. Rogers quote because I've been seeing a lot of Mr. Roger memes lately for two things. So one, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And I think it just really summarizes all of the work from our public works, the utility, the police, and our residents. It is just one of the reasons that I love our community, and people come out, they help each other, and we all rally together in times when things are going really well and when things are not going really well. So a storm, will pass, and I know that we are continuing on a very unusual year with all of the different regulations and things that continue to move forward, and we'd all love to have a crystal ball that we could predict what's going to happen, but we keep moving forward with the best decisions and supporting each other during these times of crisis. And so I also saw a nice little quote today around the virtual learning that Mr. Rogers was probably one of our best teachers, and he did it all virtually. And so just to keep putting on that positive attitude and stepping forward during all these times of change, because I think that that's one thing we can count on is change this year. And happy birthday to Graham.
Thank you, Jess. Trustee Clavio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will lead with the happy birthday, Graham. 5 is actually my favorite number, so way to go. Echoing again the cleanup and the staff, you never really know how good the people you surround yourself with are until you have a bad day. And that's when they come out and they accomplish things that you don't even know that they're able to accomplish. If everything's good, if everything's cherry, if everything's rosy in our community, you're not going to know how good our police department is and our staff is and our village work is. And derecho or not derecho, it forced the issue of making obvious how good our staff is. And I thank you all for that, because it was pretty fantastic. I mean, they mobilized, they kept the trustees informed. A bunch of the trustees actually offered to help out, which is fantastic. You don't see that in a lot of communities because the trustees set themselves above staff, which we don't do here. So it was just fabulous to see everybody pull in and actually pony up. Thank you to Piatone for that. They were not hit as hard as us, and it's also great to see our neighbors and friends kick in and say, hey, what do you need? We're there for you. And we would certainly do the same thing for anybody that needed it. And the last thing I'd close with is tomorrow actually marks the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment being ratified, which is the women's right to vote. I don't think a day goes by right now that we're not talking about voting. So we know how obvious the right to vote is and how important the right to vote is. So congratulations to the women's suffrage movement 100 years ago. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, John. And then our clerk, Brian Feary.
That was an impressive storm. I think even more impressive was the Public Works and Utility Department of protecting the residents. Right after the storm, I took a walk down Oregon, and there was a power line down. And one of the Public Works guys came out, and there was a family looking in there, kind of looking at all the trees down, and there was a line down, and the Public Works guy said, you got to stay here. And they did an amazing job of protecting residents and helping with trees, and it was great to see. So it was really an incredible storm, but even more incredible staff in Frankfort, and the residents were amazing too. And happy birthday, Graham.
Thank you, Brian. And that brings us to the part of our meeting we call public comments. Is there anyone who wants to make a comment to the village board tonight?
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, I forgot to mention one thing. Business attire after Labor Day. So the next meeting, we have to wear our business attire.
Oh,
Come on, guys.
Can we object to that?
we-
Well, during COVID, business attire has gotten very, very different.
I want you in a tie.
business attire after Labor Day, according to our clerk, and we need to give our clerk some authority in this
Please.
community.
Please.
Stephanie, please.
No, okay, thank you. Good evening, Board. First, I do want to just thank all of you for how quick you were with the responses and staff and everything during the storm. We were one of the latter parts of the subdivision in Old Town that did get power, but we're used to roughing it, so it wasn't a big deal. It was like camping, but I had my bed, and it was fine. But I can understand how some people aren't equipped for that, I guess is the best way to put it. I just wanted to bring to your attention, as I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last Thursday for the first time, and I think in close to a year. Obviously, it was the first time since the three of you were appointed to the board here. And I commended them, and I want to just thank all of you for the appointments for the board. One of the commissioners was not present, but the four that were, I mean, what I witnessed was absolutely amazing. I cannot laud what they're doing enough, because they're doing a phenomenal job as far as using all the resources that the village has available for them to really, really analyze and look, because especially Old Town, it's a Frankenstein section of town. You've got everything from the 1800s all the way up to new builds that are replicating old stuff, and they're doing a phenomenal job. So I just want to thank you for the appointments. One of the things I do want to bring up, though, is, and I brought it up at Planning and Zoning, and I do know that Jeff Cook, Adam Nielsen, and then also Zach Brown are also aware of this, and some of the trustees were also present at that meeting when I spoke on this. 111 West Nebraska is in violation of Historic Preservation Commission Code of Ordinance, specific to the certificate of appropriateness that we issued for them for their renovations on the outside. We approved the use of different materials so that they could use the hardy board. We approved the colors. We gave them a few options. And it was contingent upon keeping the architectural details, specifically the eyebrows over the windows, because one of the things that was presented to us was they were going to be adding a garage on the back. They were going to mimic the eyebrows on the garage, so it kind of, everything was cohesive. Everything kind of like, it was nice. Our ruling then went to Planning and Zoning, and Planning and Zoning then made their decision and suggestions and presented it to you. Again, under the guise of our certificate of appropriateness, that the architectural details would be kept. None of the architectural details were kept. Everything's been stripped. So Chair Stewart of the Historic Preservation Commission did alert Zach Brown as well as, not Zach Brown, Jeff Cook as well as Adam Nielsen in an email Monday evening prior to the storm that all of HPC, all five of us, are aware of that. We've all been contacted by different members of the community, either people driving by like what is going on, or people within the area of H1, just questioning why aren't the eyebrows still there? Why are the architectural details being stripped? So we decided as kind of like a group, we needed to make staff aware. And I just happened to be given a nice little segue to make Planning and Zoning aware. I was not there at Planning and Zoning specific for that. I was there for the Needham the Needham workshop project, which is down over by my house. But given the opportunity, I wanted to make them aware that this violation is occurring. And I was actually very pleased that they were shocked, and the word ridiculous was used multiple times in describing what is occurring. And the reason why I bring this up is because we do have a general penalty under general provisions. We don't have any general penalties for Historic Preservation Commission for our Code of Ordinance, but there is one under the Code of Ordinance for the Village of Frankfort. And I would just like to really encourage you to look at that going forward when these types of things occur. This is not the very first certificate of appropriateness that has been issued that has been violated, or no certificate of appropriateness being issued and architectural details being stripped. So I just want to make all of you aware of that. As far as going forward, there have been circumstances where after the fact certificate of appropriatenesses have been issued. Trustee Ferrer was there at one of our meetings where we did that for a door installation on Ash Street. And, you know, personally, as a historic preservation commissioner, I have a very hard time issuing after the fact certificate of appropriateness because the state of Illinois is a buyer beware state. You do your research on the property you're about to purchase and you know the facts. I can't look somebody in the eye and give them a certificate of appropriateness because they just didn't know. Well, that's on you. So we have that sort of violation, and that's like an over 100-year-old building that's been affected by that, and it's quite a travesty if you ask me personally. But with regards to the 111 Nebraska, the words I would like to share on that I can't publicly. So with that being said, I just really encourage you to consider putting forth the penalties that are in our code of ordinance when these violations occur. The historic preservation of Frankfort isn't going to be taken seriously if it's just a slap on the hand. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good points. Thank you. Anyone else? Then, hearing nothing more, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.